Late limbs for Sheffield United and Millwall enter the playoffs. Here's my roundup of round 14 of the Championship. So we're starting off on Tuesday night, even though you'll be seeing this on Friday, given the very odd way that the Championship midweek games have been ordered this week. But we start at Ashton Gate with Bristol City 1, Sheffield United 2. And this looked like a huge victory for Bristol City until an outstanding late comeback for the Blades, who nicked it in the 98th minute via Harrison Burrows to pick up an outstanding away victory. This was Bristol City's first defeat in 9 games, their first defeat at Ashton Gate all season. It took one of the best teams in the league to make a really late comeback and a very careless Rob Dickey red card. So all in all, listen, this is one of them moments for Sheffield United that could prove to be absolutely huge come the end of the season, and it's now their 3rd win in a row, so it's safe to say Sheffield United are right back on track if they were even ever off it. Bristol City, though, I still think can take positives from this performance. They still played relatively well, they still had the lead, things just unravelled massively in the final few minutes, but statistically they looked like they were right alongside Sheffield United, very, very competitive, so they just need to not let this result get them down too much. Oxford 1, Hull City 0. I did mention in my last roundup video how important it would be for Oxford to bounce back after their first home defeat of the season, and with them on such a winless run, I was starting to get a little bit concerned by how quietly they were slipping towards the bottom of the table, but they've picked up a very important win at home to, I wouldn't even say steady the ship, but it just props them up that little bit further with what is an extremely congested mid-table in the Championship. But a good 1-0 win for Oxford, back to winning ways, their first win in 9. However, for Hull City, they're now winless in 7, and I've started to see a few bits online about Hull fans not happy with the manager, not really happy with his football. Things don't seem like they're getting on very well at all at Hull. It doesn't seem like a very happy camp whatsoever at all. They only mustered 2 shots on target. I wouldn't say either side particularly outplayed the other. Hull had more possession, higher XG, more shots. You know, Oxford did only have 4 shots and 2 on target, but they had the same number of big chances on FootMob according to Hull. So Hull didn't really utilise their possession well enough, and their winless run now extends to 7 games, and it's not going to take much in the Championship at the minute to either go up the table or down the table, so they need to arrest this poor winless run quickly. But Oxford, a good win for them, back at home. QPR 1, Boro 4. Obviously did a full review of this on this very YouTube channel, so check it out if you haven't already. But a big win for Boro, well needed. It had all the red flags and banana skins a Boro game could have this season. And although it wasn't a 4-1 game, it was good to see Boro do the opposite of what they've done for a lot of this season, which was create a ton of chances and put basically none of them away. This game we created still plenty, but we were pretty ruthless in how we put most of our chances away and took the game away from QPR, who did have good spells in this game, I can't lie. You know, at the end of the first half, QPR looked decent. Second half, they were all right at times, but it would have been a crime had Boro not come away with 3 points from this one, and thankfully for once we converted a good performance into a win. But I've got to focus on QPR because I don't think I've quite really addressed how worried I should be or how worried people should be of QPR. I sort of thought, they've lost a few games, drawn a lot, so maybe things aren't as bad. But having saw QPR on Tuesday night, I really, really am concerned by them going forward. They offered not much, really, in open play especially, and defensively some of the goals Boro scored were really, really easy. So winless in 10 for QPR now. It is the longest run in the league, winless at home too. It's going to be a huge couple of upcoming fixtures for QPR. They've really got to pick things up soon, otherwise Cifuentes could be in trouble. Sheffield Wednesday 2, Norwich 0. I mean, I've given up predicting this Sheffield Wednesday team, quite honestly. They just, 1 week they go on ship 6 to Watford, then they beat Norwich 2-0. It's bonkers, and they keep a clean sheet. It's wild. I'm just going to take Sheffield Wednesday for whatever they are week to week, but, if you want to start any sort of consistent run, I guess it starts at home, so it's a very good home, and for them, as I say, after shipping 6 goals, a clean sheet is pretty good too. Norwich, though, disappointing for Norwich. 2 away defeats in a row. and they're now winless in 5. So not too worrying for Norwich, but as I say about a few teams in the league, they are relying on their home form quite a bit, letting themselves down on the road, and for all of the 71% possession Norwich had in this game, they didn't muster much at all. 3 shots on target, an XG of 0.3. Not great, and it does feel like when Borja Signs isn't really on it, the rest of their attackers don't offer all that much. So yeah, if Norwich are going to rely solely on their home form this season, a top 6 push might not be as much of a foregone conclusion as we maybe thought. They certainly have to start improving a little bit more on the road. Plymouth 1, Pompey 0. This could be, and I hate to use the cliche, the first real 6-pointer we may have seen down the bottom of the Championship. And as is the way, when you're at the bottom, your luck's out, you just can't buy a win, you can't find a win, you couldn't buy a win if it was free. Portsmouth somehow find a way to come out on the wrong end of what seemed like a pretty even game. In fact, Pompey had chances, big chances at times, to take the lead in the first half, and they're made to regret that, really. There wasn't much between the two sides when you look at it throughout the stats. Portsmouth maybe edged it slightly, but it was a case of just who could take that one opportunity when it came, and it fell to Obafemi, who did just that. And it's a massive, massive win for Plymouth. It doesn't get them out of trouble, but I think it just keeps them in touch with the teams that are just outside the relegation zone. And as I say, with Plymouth, they've got to pick up points at home, because away from home they've got no hope whatsoever. Portsmouth, though, you've got to be really, really, really concerned by Portsmouth. Their season just isn't getting going at all. They've had more than enough time now to start, picking up points, winning games, and they just don't look like they're any closer to doing so one week to the other. So does that mean a change of manager? I don't know, but Portsmouth's season is starting to drift away from them already at this early stage. Swansea 1, Watford 0. Swansea back to low-scoring games, but it's a very good win for Swansea at home. As is the way with them this season, they don't score very much, they don't concede very much. A bit like what we've seen this season, they maybe didn't perform as well in front of goal as they should have done, looking at the chances they had and their XG, but they got the goal that mattered, that gave them the 3 points. Watford are a team I just don't know what to say. A bit like what I said about ironically, their opposition last week. I don't know what to make of Sheffield Wednesday. I don't know what to make of Watford. They put 6 past the Owls, and they were amazing going forwards in front of goal. They then go to Swansea. They don't muster a single shot on target, and they lose to 0. I just don't know what to say about Watford, to be honest with you. And it is absolutely astounding to me that Watford have lost 6 games this season. 6 games, that's the same number as QPR, and they're almost in the playoffs. They're outside of it on goal difference. A lot of it relies on the wins they've picked up at home, but the fact they're losing so many games, they've lost almost half their games, and yet they're in the top 7, shows how open and how competitive this league is this season, and how easy it is for a team to put a good run together and get up there. And that's why I feel like, and I've said this about Boro a few times this season, it might just take a couple of really, really good teams to put a run together, and I think Watford will be dropped. But they're being kept in it by teams around them being equally as inconsistent as they are. But yeah, I just don't understand Watford. I just can't make them out whatsoever. But Swansea, a decent win, and they're quietly up to 9th, which, yeah, as I say, it's a tight league, but they're not too far off the playoffs now. And on to Wednesday night, Blackburn 0, Stoke 2. What a great win this was for Stoke City. I will admit, Blackburn come up against an outstanding goalkeeping performance in this game. Johansson, I think, made 8 saves, and I think there won't be many games this season where a goalkeeper makes that many, if not more, to be honest with you. But Blackburn, I think their good start is starting to fizzle out now. Start of the season, they were relying a lot on their home form. They had brilliant home form at the start, and there's a lot of teams who are like that in this league, and this kind of shows you what happens when you rely on one side of your game or one half of your fixture list, and if you aren't good enough away, your home form starts to slip. You can start dropping points quite quickly, and Blackburn have now lost 2 of their last 3 without scoring a single goal, and you do feel like that really good start that they did have, is starting to filter away. Now they are now down to 10th, having lost 3 games in a row. As I said, they did create a lot, though. They did absolutely chuck chances at Stoke, but Stoke equally, when you look at the XG, created just as much in terms of high quality. Blackburn did have 25 shots in this game, 8 on target, that probably won't happen much this season without them registering a goal at the same time. But Stoke, who had less chances but decent ones, took theirs. Manhoef with a great finish. Tom Cannon once again from the penalty spot. So it's back-to-back wins for Stoke, which, is good. It doesn't take many wins, as I said, to get up the table. So back-to-back wins suddenly make things look a little bit more rosy down at the Bet365. And yeah, Blackburn, they need to get their home form back on track. Otherwise, they are going to slowly slip well into mid-table. Coventry 1, Derby 2. What happened to be the final game for Mark Robins. And I don't want to say this was a smash and grab, but I feel like this is the sort of game where if you're in Coventry's position, these games happen. And it was one that caught me off guard completely. Coventry back-to-back wins against Luton and Boro, and I pretty much was convinced that their season was ready to go. I thought, right, here we go, November, clocks go back, Cov go forward. I was convinced that they were going to probably win convincingly here, go on a run. Mark Robins would, do what he does, take them up the table. If you'd have told me 48 hours ago that they'd have lost to Derby at home, gave them their first away win of the season, and Mark Robins would be sacked, I wouldn't have believed you, but that's what happened. I think a degree of it is just the way Coventry's season's gone. Every time they seem like they get going, something, puts them back to square one, and boy, are they back to square one now. They've got rid of Mark Robins, but, Derby, as we know, away from home, aren't very productive. Jerry Yates was gifted their first goal via a bad back pass from Jack Radoni, and the second went in off one of the wildest deflections you'll ever see. So play this game 9 times out of 10. Coventry probably don't lose it. They probably come out on the right side of it, but as is the way, it's a really tough loss at home, and the result is all that matters, and it will just put Coventry and their fans back to where they were, if not worse, because now they don't have a manager either, and it's a case of where the hell do they go from here? And what does it mean for Coventry's season? I did do a video on the channel yesterday discussing the Robins sacking in detail, so you can find my thoughts on that in the video if you want to check it out. But yeah, the result is the biggest thing. Coventry back to sort of square one. Derby, though, first away win by hook or by crook. It's a big win for them. Millwall 1, Leeds 0. It's Millwall's fourth 1-0 win in a row. They're unbeaten in 6, and in them 6 unbeaten games, they've conceded just once. That is an outstanding run from Millwall, and I said this at the weekend, I say it again. Not too long ago, it felt like they were out of the blue in 20th, and you're thinking, oh my God, what's happening there? For any teams in the Championship, this goes for Boro, my own, this goes for any, this tells you exactly what this league is this season. Barring the top 3, Sunderland, Sheffield United and Leeds, I would say the top, from 4th down, as I said at the weekend, them positions are up for grabs for anyone. And Millwall have proven that all it takes is a little run, shoot up defensively, a couple of clean sheets, a few wins, and you're in business. They've went from 20th to 6th. They were 5th, I think, after their game. That just shows how tight, congested and competitive this league is. And for any team that maybe is losing a bit of faith, losing a bit of hope, there are playoff places there for everyone to really, have a good run at if they can just put a run of consistent results together. And that's what Millwall have done, and fair play to them. And to be fair, you look at Millwall's stats and numbers and their underlying data, their expected points, their XG, everything is extremely positive. Arguably they're still underperforming now. I think they're a team who've really gone under the radar, but defensively they're doing really, really well. The Den is proven to be a tough place to go again. And Leeds United went there and couldn't even muster a goal. I mean, yes, they had more chances. Yes, they had more possession. But their XG wasn't all that. So they were limited to not very high quality chances either. So, yeah, Millwall, watch out. Let's keep a keen eye on them this season. Leeds United, big points dropped, given a lot of teams around them dropped points as well. Luton 1, Cardiff 0. The Luton Town rollercoaster continues. They win 1, they lose 1, they win 1, they lose 1. Listen, we've been here many times this season following a Luton victory, asked the same question. Is this it? Is this the start? It's never been. It's been a false dawn after false dawn. So, listen, I'll credit Luton for beating a Cardiff side that were unbeaten in 6, I think, up until this point, and were doing so well under Omar Reza. They deserve a lot of credit for that. There wasn't too much between the two sides on the day. Cardiff themselves had some really good chances too, but Luton have edged a tight game, 3 points on the board, big one for them. Cardiff, listen, they were unbeaten in 6 before this. It's their first loss in 7. I'm sure once they get back to the Cardiff City Stadium, get back to winning ways, I still think they're on a very good trajectory under the man who still, somehow, isn't their permanent manager. Preston 0, Sunderland 0. A good point for Preston, and back-to-back draws for Sunderland. Back-to-back 0-0 draws as well without scoring, which is interesting. It's an okay point for Preston. I still think, context. Playing the team top of the league, it's still a very, very good point at home, and it backs up still what's been a strong run at home for Preston under Paul Heckingbottom. But it is only one win in 6 for them. A lot of draws in there, and I feel like it's them draws with, as I say, teams around them, the tightness of the league. I think that's just what's causing Preston to slip down a little bit, and they were really unlucky in this game, to be fair. They should have had a penalty, I feel. I think Reece was brought down in the second half, it might have been, and yeah, they were unlucky, and Paul Heckingbottom was rightfully quite upset with that. But as I mentioned at the weekend, Sunderland, I do feel like they are going through a bit of a drop-off. And I've said, since game week 1, it will happen. There will be a drop-off, when you've got players that are so young, so raw. They are going to have fluctuations in their form. They're not going to be able to maintain the levels that they have done at the start of the season throughout the whole campaign. That's why, in a busy period like the one coming up in November, you need a big squad. You need a squad with depth, with players who can come in and step in for fatigue, fitness, or just form and consistency. So I think we are seeing a bit of a drop-off from Sunderland, but at the same time, as I said, following their 0-0 draw last time out as well at QPR, the top teams, when they can't win, they find a way of not losing, and they still come away with the game with something. And even though Preston and Sunderland, they had equal number of shots on target, Preston had more big chances, more possession, Sunderland still come away with a point, and that's what the top teams do. And finally, West Brom 0, Burnley 0. Probably the most predictable, boring result you could have imagined in the Championship. These two teams are pretty bad to watch. West Brom at home, I feel sorry for the people who've got season tickets at the Hawthorns. I couldn't believe this stat when I saw it, but West Brom at home have only scored twice and only conceded once. Literally, only 3 goals have gone in total at the Hawthorns this season, which is absolutely mad. And Burnley aren't much better either. They've got the second lowest XG in the league. Scott Parker's, football is rightfully being, I think, finally called out for being ineffective and boring, and I think it shows how much they sort of overperformed at the start of the season with the goals they were managing to convert from very, very little. I think it's starting to catch up with Burnley a little bit, and although they edged this game and they did have a goal disallowed, which I still to this day don't quite understand why it was disallowed, that was harsh on Burnley, and they were slightly the better team. They still just aren't creating enough going forward, and with their attacking numbers, you simply can't make a strong case for this Burnley team being an automatic promotion contender with the, how bad their attacking numbers are. And you could also throw that argument at West Brom. This is their record 6th draw in a row, winless in 8, and they've scored only 2 in their last 7 games. So yeah, 2 very poor attacking teams, and I don't know where they both go from here. They're both fantastic defensively, and that is a great platform, and you could argue that all they need to do is start finding their scoring boots and they'll both be absolutely fine. But West Brom are drawing games, winless in a long time, can't find the back of the net. Burnley are keeping the goals out. That's 7 clean sheets in the last 8, but they don't look good going the other way either. So again, the chasing pack are closing in, and these two might drop out the playoffs soon if they're not careful. And talking of the league table, it's mad. It's absolutely mad. Again, like I did at the weekend, I'm going to sort of segment the top 3 from the rest. I still think Sunderland, Sheffield United and Leeds are just a level above, especially Sheffield United at this moment in time, barring the 2 defeats that they had to Boro and Leeds. Had they picked up points from them 2 games, they'd be joint top, given their points deduction as well. I don't think there's much of an argument to say that they're probably the best team in the league. Sunderland, we'll see how they react, to this slight slump, but it's no more than that. They've just drawn 2 games. I think it's the fact they've not scored that maybe is the slight concern, and I still feel like Leeds will be fine. They've just come up against a very informed Millwall, but from there down, it's absolutely ridiculous. I think, 8 points, 9 points separating Burnley and the bottom 3. Oxford in 16th, they're only 7 points off Burnley in 4th. As I stressed, all it takes is a run of results to really insert yourself into the top 6. Millwall have proven you can do it. Watford have proven even with 6 defeats you can do it. You look at Swansea, they've sort of come from nowhere and they might be knocking on the door pretty soon. But equally, you look at teams like Norwich, who, looked like a sure thing in there only a few weeks back. They're now down to 12th. Blackburn as well, they were in there not so long ago. They're down to 10th. So, yeah, if you're a team mid-table, I'd be looking up as there's a really, really great opportunity there. But equally, if you're a team just outside, you're slipping a bit, you could find yourself in mid-table pretty quickly. So I'm going to be very intrigued to see who picks up momentum, who pulls some results together, because the table could change for them very, very quickly. And of course, when we get back from the international break, the games will be so thick and fast through the Christmas period. This table could be changing drastically from one week to the other. It's going to be, I think, very, very exciting. But let me know your thoughts on this week's round of fixtures. Of course, because of how late the final game was, there is nowhere near enough time to predict the next round of games. Literally, the Friday night game will have already finished by the time I've finished recording this in 24 hours' time. So, yeah, we're going to be back to round up the weekend's games before the international break, as well as reviewing Boro's game against Luton. But if you've enjoyed the video, do it a like on it, subscribe for much more Championship content, hit a bell too so you never miss when one drops, and do leave me a comment in the section below with your thoughts on your team. But until next time, guys, do take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.